Bueno, chaval, está por empezar el live, faltan 5 mins y nada, esperar y...
Remember that Neil Diamond song? Hello? No?
Esperar y jeje.
Not that one.
Well, there's a Neil Diamond hello, and then there's Lionel Richie's hello. Hello? Is it me you're looking for?
I do know
Madre
that
mía.
And then there's there's the Adele hello, which I don't know very well.
Hello.
Hello.
It's me.
That was a bit too zoomer for me.
Zoomer? Is that what we're
Isn't
calling it?
that what the post
Oh,
millennials
yeah.
call themselves?
Yeah, Gen Z boomer, Zoomer.
The zoomers.
I like Zoomer. That's a cool name.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I'd be a Zoomer.
I think you're a boomer, I'm afraid.
I am not a boomer, you ass.
According to zoomers, anyone older than 20 is a boomer.
Yeah, apparently. No,
Yeah, that's
I
about
am,
right.
I am right in the middle of Gen X. So, actually, I was reading an article that they said that there's actually this little there's like a little 6-year window that they're now branding as Zennials. It's the tail end of Gen X where that doesn't quite fit in with anybody. It's like there's just like a group of people that's hated by everybody and they hate everybody. I'm like, yeah, man, that is my group.
So it's Zennials with an X.
Zennials with an X, yeah.
Oh wow.
But
That's confusing because millennials would be Y, Gen Y, and then
Yeah.
Gen Z comes after. So Zennials could be misconstrued as like my age between millennials and Gen Z.
Well, that's only because you don't know how to spell, Zach.
Because you're a zoomer.
Because you're a Zoomer. Do I want to know how old you are?
23.
Oh God, I didn't want to know. It's hard enough. I when we're in the office and half the people I'm working with are talking about SpongeBob, and I'm like, I've never seen an episode of SpongeBob. I was already an adult when SpongeBob started, so I was like, no, I've never seen SpongeBob. I don't know what a pineapple under the sea is.
You're on OG Mickey Mouse.
I feel like
Black
I've got
and
a
white.
good grasp on it just from the memes.
Yeah,
I've also
that's
not
basically
really watched any of it.
yeah. All I know about SpongeBob is the memes.
Yeah.
When is Danger Mouse? Is that like a...
Danger Mouse is our time. I grew up watching Danger Mouse.
Danger Mouse was awesome.
Yeah, we had one station that, because Danger Mouse was a UK thing, but we had one station that played it over here. It wasn't like BBC America or anything. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like PBS or something. I thought it was like cultural entertainment because it came from England. All right, so yeah, that's our audio test, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Falta poquito para que empiece, chavales. Camiseta R6 puesta, ya estamos preparados. Y nada, pues un minutillo. Buena, Fomi. Pues nada, en este episodio live sobre iluminación, supongo que nos hablarán un poquito de las cosas que han hecho ahí en Horizon y todo eso, que será un tema bastante light, pero igual aprendemos cosas, o igual hablan del trazado de rayos. Tecnología, ya sabéis que está en boca de todos con el tema del ray tracing y esas cosas. Entonces, a ver qué nos cuentan. La verdad que hubo unos episodios ahí bastante interesantes, hablando sobre el tema de la iluminación, de cómo trabajan, de que tienen una especie de cubos, por así decirlo, replicantes, que funcionan como espejos o replicantes de lo que sería la iluminación y las luces para llevar las luces que llegan del exterior a las estancias, ¿no? Pues la luz en Star Cities en este caso viene de la estrella, que sería Stanton. Supongo que cuando esté Pyro pues vendrá de otro tipo de fuente de luz y cómo es modificada con este sistema de cubos reflectantes, ¿no? Más o menos, por así decirlo. Y a ver qué nos cuentan ahora. La iluminación al final es una de las cosas que también consume muchísimos recursos de PC y todo eso. Y afecta muchísimo al desempeño del juego también, ¿no? Sobre todo de De noche, pues se puede ver que hay un consumo más elevado debido a las luces que tienen y demás, que de día, ¿no? El RTX, pues nada, que es la tecnología de trazado de rayos. Y vamos a ver si nos dicen algo hoy de esto, porque decían que como que querían implementarla de cara al futuro, pero que de momento no. Entonces, bueno, vamos a ver en qué queda la cosa o si nos dan novedades de eso. Y buenas a todos, chavales. Otro viernes más con el Star Citizen Live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live Game Dev. What do we call it? Mood lighting. Mood lighting. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour out of the end of our week, and we hang out with some of our developers here at Cloud Imperium Games. We answer questions, we chat about the best version of Hello, and sometimes we dip into the workflow, and we see a little bit about how they work. That's what we're doing this week in our Game Dev show. Let me bring our guests in here. We have got Chris and Zach from the CIG lighting team. How you guys doing?
Dice pues que, como ya sabéis, explicando lo que es un Star Citizen Live, que es en el momento en que, bueno, profundizan un poco más en lo que es el desarrollo, hablando con... o desarrollo de otras cosas que tengan que ver con el juego, ¿no? Hablando con empleados en directo de Star Citizen, y en este caso creo que es Chris y no me acuerdo del otro, pero que son del equipo de iluminación.
Talking lighting today. So before we get into it, because every show is somebody's first show, and Zach, I know this is your first show. Let's take a minute or two to introduce yourselves to the community. Tell them who you are, what you do. Chris, we'll start with you. Who are you? What do you do? And what's your favorite sandwich?
I'm Chris Campbell. I'm the lead lighting artist for the PU. And my favorite sandwich. I mean, I'm going to be controversial and say I don't really like sandwiches that much.
Le está preguntando y escolando qué es lo que haces y cuál es tu sándwich favorito. Dice que bueno, que no le gustan mucho los sándwiches y pone una cara de extraño ahí, el puto discolando. Buena Zorro, buena Jagger.
Sandwich, and we could get into that, but...
I was going to say the same thing. Not a sandwich fan, so maybe it's something to do with being a lighting artist and hating sandwiches.
Discolando le están puteando porque ninguno de los dos le molan. Dice que ninguno de los dos le molan los sándwiches. ¿Qué coño está preguntando, no? Qué troleada le acaban de mandar.
Monte Cristo, by the way. A Monte Cristo from Club 33 at Disneyland is the correct answer. All right.
Is a Monte Cristo.
Bueno, decir que no he podido ver, pero también tener en cuenta que se supone que hay un parche. No sé si... Yo espero que este fin de semana vayamos a tener pruebas sobre eventos y demás. Y bueno, vamos a ver qué pasa de momento. Vamos a hacer el live, a disfrutar de él. Y que este pinta un live disfrutable. Y a partir de ahí pues ya miraremos las cositas del parche más tarde.
It gets made by the environment artists and level designers, and adding lighting to it in a way that represents the art director's visual target for.
Es que llevo la puta camiseta de RSI, joder, y me siento tochísimo.
Technical restraints, and also some gameplay considerations like leading the player, making sure that they have good visibility where we want them to have good visibility, that they know where they need to go if it's something like a linear level design or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And today on the show, we are doing a game dev stream where we're going to showcase some aspect of your process. What are we doing today?
Yeah, so today we're going to show kind of the process of how we are relighting some of the hubs around the PU. You may have noticed in...
Vale, están diciendo que nos van a enseñar una muestra del proceso de cómo hacen el repaso de la reiluminación de los hubs. Los hubs que, bueno, que son las... Me gustaría saber cómo se puede decir en español bien hub, ¿no? Porque hub es como si fuera un habitáculo para la vivienda. Es una vivienda, pero sí, es una vivienda. O sea, una vivienda, ¿no?
Either relaxation or sleep kind of state. So yeah, what we're gonna do is...
Lo que pasa es que Hub es una vivienda, pero en plan, pues una vivienda, pues así en este rollo, ¿no? En el rollo, pues, que podríamos ver en el Quinto Elemento, cosas así, ¿no? Pues algo compacto, algo más compacto que lo que sería, pues, un apartamento al uso, ¿no? No es un flat, ¿no? Un apartamento o algo así. O un apartment. O sea, es un hub. Es algo como más comprimido, ¿no?
Are working on at present in the game. So we're not creating any special work or anything for today. You're actually just, you have to do this. And I'm like, can we watch it for an hour? And you're like, sure. So so we have...
El típico Zulu, ya me molaría a mí Lampec que este fuera el típico Zulu de soltero de 30 años. Molaría un huevo vivir en un sitio así. O sea, vale que... A ver, yo prefiero vivir donde vivo, ¿eh? Pero en grandes ciudades que la vivienda es una puta mierda, tío, ya les molaba tener esto.
To change the lighting.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So thanks, everybody. Remember that we'll be back next week with more...
Estaban dándole al interruptor y dicen, bueno, ya está. Y bueno, dice, es de recordar todo el mundo que bueno, que nos vemos la semana que viene. Se acabó el rollo. Fijaros que, bueno, pues vemos todo un programa que tiene toda una serie de movidas ahí para poder ver. Ahí está, este es el maldito cubo de iluminación que estábamos hablando las otras veces, ¿no? Pero vamos a escuchar y vamos a ver qué nos dice.
A kind of a desire to add more player interactivity. From a lighting perspective, I mean, you've already got some things that you can interact with in your habs, and we wanted to add to that through lighting. So the obvious way to do that is we've already got these tools called light groups, which allow us to basically change the state of a light based on whatever kind of logic.
Claro, está diciendo que siempre buscan la manera de... Que si bien se puede interactuar con las luces, siempre buscan la manera de poder llevar más allá el tema de que se pueden interactuar con luces y tal. Y con respecto a mucho Zulo de soltero, pero no veo en ningún lado el PC Gaming, yo si tuviera una Aurora y pudiera ver así el espacio, tío... ojo con el PC Gaming donde estaba,
And yeah, the next kind of obvious thing was to do it in the habs, where we recently got some new kind of gameplay entities that allow us to tie the light group into a switch, which is player interactable, so the player himself or herself can manually change the light state.
All right, so we're going back through all of the...
Claro, están diciendo de que tienen... La manera de hacerlo es que tienen un grupo de entidades a las que les pueden asignar un switch, un switch, un botón de encendido y apagado, ¿no? Y entonces esa es la manera de la que, asignándole ese grupo de entidades, que son luces, pues pueden hacer que el jugador sea capaz de apagar o encender las luces, ¿no?
A low power state and a full powered state. Yeah, we're not adding too much complexity to it at the moment. We just want to get something in, kind of as a proof of concept, and then see where we can expand it, where it makes sense to expand it.
Okay, so no red alerts. No switch the hab to red
No,
alert.
not yet. I mean, maybe in the future you could be cooking something and then the fire alarm goes off and the whole hab changes.
What about like a...
Claro, están hablando de que quizás en el futuro puedas cocinar algo y cuando cocines algo, pues la ambientación, la luz se modificará por estar cocinando y demás.
And we're already off track. All right. So, Zach, we've been bouncing through the hab now for a few minutes. Take it away. Where do we start?
Yeah, sure. So I guess one of the first things we could show is the lights themselves. And right here, we have a kind of default state, auxiliary state, emergency state. And so the first thing we'll do is...
Claro, están diciendo que en esta parte de aquí tienen el normal, el estado normal, el estado auxiliar y el emergency state, ¿no? El estado de emergencia. O sea que tienen diferentes configuraciones para lo que son los diferentes posibles estados de las luces, ¿no? Tanto en naves como tal, esto va a ser así. Es una herramienta que tienen así creada, ¿no?
And tweak all the auxiliary, kind of define like what your low power state is going to be. And there's also ways in which you control how that transition happens. So if you notice, the lights don't just kind of immediately switch from the default state to the auxiliary state. There's a bit of a transition, and I did this one, so it's not the most interesting. But there are some others where different lights kind of transition at different times, and you get a bit of like different lights across the room. This is the new bab.
Claro, lo que nos están enseñando es los cambios de estado de diferentes hubs que tienen, que hay algunos que son más complejos, que vemos como de forma secuencial se van apagando todas las luces y van pasando a ese estado de iluminación auxiliar que le llaman, ¿no? Está bastante guapo, la verdad.
Yeah, this one's
So
nice and dramatic.
You need like an air purifier in here.
Yeah.
Crap
Yeah.
floating in the air. Now this
Yeah, look at
transition, you're continuously transitioning between two modes. You're flying around in free fly, and then you're transitioning into another mode to do this. What is this mode that you're transitioning into?
We have a little hotkey Control G that kind of spawns you a character and just gives you the kind of interactions that you'd expect to have as a character. So it's just a quick way to kind of verify how this interaction feels and how these characters are kind of receiving light in these spaces. There are other ways that we can look at that.
Le está preguntando Iscolando de cómo os pones ahí tu personaje y tal. Bueno, pues que tienen una especie de... Tienen un hotkeys que son, bueno, como una configuración de teclas que conforman un acceso directo para poder hacer aparecer un personaje y comprobar que todo funciona correctamente o que la experiencia pues es la esperada, ¿no? Comprobar cómo será la experiencia de un personaje.
And it looks a bit nauseating when you go, whoa.
Yeah, that's why I was like, we've seen it a couple of times, and I'm like, we should probably explain what that thing is that we're seeing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that nauseousness is when you jump into game mode. I think it's some bug which will no doubt be fixed. But yeah, I mean, as Zach was saying, like the benefit of being able to jump in game like this is that, you know, we're trying to make the environment look good, but you know, in the actual game itself, there's a lot of characters running around, and so we also have to verify that the player character looks good, and you know, by doing that, we also make sure that any other NPCs or AI can theoretically also, you know, look their best under the same lighting circumstances. So that's something we always keeping in mind when we light environments.
Cool. So we can take a look at a few more if that's interesting, or we can just kind of like jump in and have a crack at one.
Yeah, well, let's jump in and see what your task is, what you're actually trying to do here. We've seen these habs before.
So this is Area 18, and just this week I've done kind of auxiliary setup for this hab.
Claro, al final lo que han hecho, pues dice, pues bueno, Discorando que dice que vayan al grano, que enseñen un poco lo que han estado haciendo, ¿no? Y dice, pues aquí en Área 18 que han retocado y ahora pues también tenemos el modo auxiliar, tenemos la botonera. Lo que pasa es que no sé si... Hostia, qué guapo. Lo que pasa es que no sé si esto ya estaría implementado en el universo. Probablemente no. Probablemente esto sea trabajo de cara a futuro. Cosa que no han comentado todavía, ¿no? Luego también comenta un poquito que a la hora de iluminar y de poner personajes y demás, que también pueden meter NPCs y demás para asegurarse de que a la hora de iluminar el personaje también hay unas buenas condiciones o sea, que se fijan en los detalles de cómo no solo la iluminación afecta a la estancia, sino también cómo afectaría a los personajes estando dentro de un lugar, ¿no?
So the first step is kind of defining like what lights are we going to keep on, what lights are we going to turn off, and I can also show you the horrifying thing that we're faced with before we've set up any auxiliary lighting, where everything's just default values.
Claro, así es, esto es a lo que se enfrentan, esto que vemos así súper brillante y tal, y dice, estos son los errores a los que nos enfrentamos antes de configurar todas las luces, ¿no? Que ven toda esta puta locura brillante y luego pues tienen que ir modificando, ajustando, tuneando para que realmente te dé la sensación de que estás en un hub y que no estás en una granja de pollos, en un corral de pollos.
Interesting.
You can see that here.
Logan, si no te importa, lo digo así rapidito, cualquier pregunta que hagáis ahora relacionada con el juego la tengo que contestar después, porque ahora me tengo que centrar en lo que están diciendo, lo que están hablando, ¿vale? Para yo poder doblar las cosas en directo. Justo ahora hay una ventanita de tiempo en que no están diciendo casi nada. El TI-6000 lo que mola es la palanca de gases y el joystick, el 3D Pro. Te puedo extender más la información al acabar lo que es el show que están dando, ¿vale? Dura sobre una horita. O sea, a las 6 ya se acaba el show y ahí puedes preguntar lo que quieras y te puedo explicar bien las cosas.
Cool. Everything except these cube maps, which I think you went over in your last kind of lighting stream, but they're essentially the kind of ambient lighting solution. They take a little snapshot on all 6 sides of the lighting in the space and reproject it out. So instead of just having complete darkness in the areas that aren't being hit by direct lighting, get a bit of ambient lighting and the correct kind of reflections that should be there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
I
think we've lost a host.
No,
That's all right. We'll just go through it.
I was changing my lighting to match your sexy time lighting.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
See,
Nice.
I got the same look. It's like we're in the same place.
Cool. So I think if we're going sexy time, we should probably keep all these pink ones, because that's what's giving us that.
Dice que si van en rollo sexy time, que están planeando un momento sexy, pues dejarían todo las rositas y tal. O sea, que depende de... O sea, lo que nos están diciendo un poco es que con la iluminación realmente le pueden dar lo que es color a lo que es las sensaciones que te transmite una estancia, ¿no? Incluso, pues, mediante ese cubo que tienen ahí en medio, pueden modificar las propiedades de cómo se refleja la luz en las diferentes paredes de la habitación, modificando los valores de, pues, de intensidad, brillo, etcétera.
Different light types. Because they're longer strip lights, I'm using these ones that are in the engine. They're called planar, and they represent like kind of rectangle of light and emits out from there. And then I also have these little lights here which are linked to these fixtures that control the glow. So that controls the brightness of the glow and the color of the glow.
Claro, nos están enseñando un poco de que o sea, ahora mismo está trabajando con esas luces rectangulares y tal, y luego que tiene otras propiedades aquí que está tocando, con las que puede toquetear lo que es el brillo, el glow, ¿no? El brillo de la luz o la intensidad del mismo.
We need the lighting team to go over to Jared's apartment. I'm not in my apartment. I'm in the studio. I'm in the studio. This is the LA studio. I'm back in the office.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. Like we spend so much time lighting these like 3D environments, but the lighting in my apartment is very uninspiring by comparison.
Forgot to make them pink.
Classic.
We need to decide what we're going to do about these sexy Horizon bulbs as well that I've brought in. We can keep them blue or make them pink.
Sí, creo que esto está bastante... O sea, este live es bastante menos técnico, en el sentido es mucho más práctico. Nos están enseñando un poquito cómo están utilizando el programa o cómo quieren enfocar o enfrentarse al tema de la iluminación, modificando las diferentes partes, ¿no? que tiene la habitación. Eso es todo lo que están haciendo de momento.
Primary like key light color is going to be this pink. That's going to define like the overall mood for the room, and then we've got these accent lights up in the ceiling and spotlights and stuff. And we need a color for that that's going to work.
Well, it can't be pink. The other ones are already pink, people. You can't just put pink and pink and pink and pink. Let's go.
You can. You'll get a very pink room, but
yeah, let's go with purple.
Purple.
Purple?
So like a deeper kind of purple. Yeah, that could work. So now that you're working in the alternate light state, Zach, you just mentioned how you do that. Like in game, we can obviously flick the switch, but then as soon as you jump out of game, it goes back to the default light state.
Yeah. So, oh god. The way that kind of switch works is that it's hooked up to one of these light groups, which is something that in theory should be in every kind of what we call object container or area, like a hab or a hab floor. And within this, you can set how you want. So, for example, like Horizon, we have the day-night states where it switches from, we switch on all those kind of lights in the garden, on the trees at nighttime. So one of the things we can do from this light group is set to be affected by day-night and set
Claro, están hablando aquí también que tienen otra panel de configuración, otras herramientas. Es que esto ha evolucionado, pero no os hacéis a la puta idea, porque antes lo tenían que hacer casi todo a mano y ahora tienen una herramienta gracias a, bueno, sabéis que el Star Citizen pues es un juego que está en desarrollo y que está tardando tanto en salir porque una de la gran parte del trabajo que están haciendo en Cloud Imperium Games es la creación de herramientas de que gente como la que estamos viendo ahora luego puedan utilizar para hacer su trabajo. Y el ejemplo lo tenemos ahí de que tienen una posible configuración para poder seleccionar qué luces se ven afectadas por los cambios entre día y noche, ¿no? Cosas que antes pues no tenían esa opción, esa herramienta para hacerlo de una manera tan sencilla. Entonces, poquito a poco van evolucionando y van avanzando, pues, y cuando además la mayoría de las herramientas estén hechas, que todavía hay algunas que, si bien, como por ejemplo el Building Blocks, que es lo que se utiliza para el tema de hacer las apps en Movie-Glass, de las pantallas MFD de las naves, etcétera, cuando estén definidas lo que son, digamos, las diferentes partes o las diferentes configuraciones para los diferentes paneles del juego y demás, pues luego el crear estilos independientes o de característicos de cada marca o el plasmar ese tipo de tecnología en lo que es el juego o de arte en el juego será mucho más sencillo, mucho más rápido. Así que probablemente de aquí a un año vayamos a ver una explosión de contenidos bastante importante en Star Citizen, pues yo creo que con la implementación de las mecánicas que están metiendo, eh, con los primeros pasitos que están dando, ¿no? Que son pasitos que están allanando el camino para todas las ideas y todos los artistas que van a poder trabajar en el futuro en diversas cosas, pues realmente sí que creo que vamos a ver. Si ahora estamos viendo una carretera de montaña, ¿no? O bueno, en algunos sitios ya empezamos a ver una carretera nacional. Lo que vamos a ver a final de año vaya a ser una autopista probablemente para cantidad de cosas que vayan a meter en Star Cities en ese sentido, ¿no?
Color's always an annoying conversation because in video, we use RGB, red, blue, green. A zero value is black. The absence of color is black, and the addition of all colors is how you get white. But in print, they use CYMK, where it's the exact opposite, where the absence of color is white, and the addition of all colors is black. And it's always just it's one of those weird Mark Skelton deep thoughts thing where you're like how is one the absence of color? How is white the absence of color in one, and black is the absence of color in another? And then
how do you have these two polar opposite systems existing?
And then how do they both manage to be crayons? If in either.
Joder, está comentando Discolando de un tema de color, hablando de su experiencia que ha tenido en edición de vídeos y demás. Que a la hora de. Que es curioso, ¿no? El tema de que cuando nosotros damos color o trabajamos con color, pues la ausencia de color es el negro. Y a la hora de imprimir, la ausencia de color es el blanco, ¿no? Y que para tú conseguir negro, pues tienes que utilizar todos los colores. Pero bueno, la verdad es que en mi cabeza eso tiene bastante sentido porque tú lo que haces cuando tú estás pintando algo o tienes una superficie, lo que hace esa pintura es precisamente absorber el resto de espectro de colores y devolverte solo uno. Entonces, si tú pintas de todos los colores que hay, digamos, pues estás absorbiendo todos los colores y por tanto tienes negro. O sea, si tú mezclas el azul con el amarillo, con el rosa, tienes negro, ¿no? Creo que era así. El cian, el magenta y el otro, coño. No me acuerdo. Cian, magenta y amarillo, creo que es. No, cian, magenta y amarillo. Creo que sí, no me acuerdo ya. Pero bueno, que sí, que es eso.
So like any kind of doorways or spaces that you're supposed to interact with, you kind of need to see what you're doing and where you're going. So, do I not have a doorway?
Yeah, so even though it's like an MMO with like so much space that you can go around to, there's always, especially in locations like this, areas where we know that the player is always going to be going through, always transitioning through, and that's where we generally focus either the highest quality of the lighting, so we spend more, we pay for shadows if that's what needs to be there to make it look good, put more area lights there, that kind of stuff.
Claro, dice que, bueno, me hace, me hace gracia, ¿no? Porque me hace gracia porque dice de que solo se detallan o solo hacen luces detalladas en donde creen que el jugador va a transitar más o los jugadores van a transitar más, especialmente un MMO como este que es enorme y tal. Pero claro, eh, yo lo que veo es que no dejan ningún detalle suelto. O sea, o sea, a cualquier sitio que vayas, a cualquier lugar que vayas, quizás hay algún sitio súper extra mimado, súper extra cuidado, pero realmente, comparado con otros juegos, el nivel de detalle está muy arriba, ¿no?
One of the more expensive parts of rendering a scene. Um, and so whenever we use shadows, we have to keep in mind how many shadows we're using. The more that you have on the scene at one given time, it can kind of exponentially get more expensive.
Claro, está diciendo que a la hora de usar sombras tiene que tener cuidado de cuántas sombras utiliza porque a medida que van usando más, exponencialmente sale más caro para lo que es la performance, el rendimiento, ¿no? Es más costoso para el hardware.
By the CPU trying to calculate, how many extra shadows have to be computed.
Right, the lighting budget, if you would.
Yeah, exactly. The overall lighting budget.
Every location doesn't have the same budget, though. But like, how do you do you determine that? Is that something the art director determines? How do you determine like what your budget is for a particular location?
I mean, like we generally get kind of guidelines from the graphics department. Again, mostly because lighting is almost purely a graphics side of the equation. So the graphics department gives us kind of a set of budgets to stick within, and that's like the number of overlapping shadows that you can have on the screen at any given moment, like two shadow casting lights next to each other. How many lights in general make up the overall scene that you can render on screen at one moment, and stuff like that. And so we basically just have to stay within those boundaries, and then we have to allow for a certain amount of overhead for unknown light sources, basically,
Right.
because again, this is like
Glow
a big
sticks,
multiplayer game.
flashlights,
Glow
explosions,
sticks,
stuff like that.
flashlights, ships, all of these things can, depending on the location, can be introduced to the location, and then that just adds on top of that budget.
And I imagine the size, shape, layout, and everything of the location matters too, because it's what you can hide behind a wall. The layout of the place, what you can see at any given time, would determine what can be hidden and unloaded from the from the computer. So
Yeah.
it's like something like an underground facility with a lot of twists and turns and hallways and whatnot probably frees you up to do a lot more. But something like Horizon, where it's sitting out and open and you can see one end of the city from the other, that's got to be a hell of a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like these kind of examples, like we generally love working on hubs and shops and stuff like that, because they're not only they're very self-contained, so you can do a lot, but as you say, because they're very confined environments within like a culling volume, we can spend a lot more lighting budget, really making it look as good as we envisage it. Whereas something like Origin and outdoor environments in general, there's a lot more variables at play that always have to be rebalanced. So, when it comes to lighting somewhere like Origin, there's just a constant process of iterating. You make a bunch of changes, those get populated because there's so many different like platforms which are duplicates of each other. So if you add one light, you could end up adding 500 lights to the overall scene of Origin. And then we have to balance using our various optimization methods to keep our numbers within a certain range.
Yeah. Bed Slayer and a couple other folks in chat have been asking about ray trace lighting. That's actually a question for the graphics team. Bed Slayer. These are the lighting artists are the ones that use the tools that are provided to them and stuff, and actually like it's like you're asking a question about whether we'll get better or different brushes. These are the guys that use the brushes to paint the picture. So that's really a question for our graphics.
Claro, están preguntándole efectivamente sobre el ray tracing y están diciendo de que esa pregunta sería para el equipo de gráficos, diciéndole que sería un tipo diferente de brocha y que ellos lo único que utilizan son utilizar las brochas que les suministra los equipos técnicos, ¿no?
Have there been moments where you have something and it looks just the way you want it, and you're like so happy with it, like this is perfect, and then somebody has to come back to you and be like, you're 50 entities over your budget. It's like you've got to bring it back, and how do you process that?
Well, I mean, it can happen, absolutely, and it's always pretty devastating, because it's like you got to hack away at your baby, take off some limbs, and hope that it still is pretty. But yeah, I mean, sometimes that's just the cost of things. Like it all comes down to weighing up like where we want the budgets to go. So I mean, like in a small environment like this, where there's not much VFX, for example, if we wanted to, or if there was a decision made, you could push some more of the lighting budget towards the VFX budget because they're not using it. I mean, the ultimate goal is always to get like a certain frame rate, and every department has their own little budgets to fit within that. But if some departments don't exist in a location, then yeah, we can just kind of creep in there a little bit.
Yeah. Well, they say that adversity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Many of you see, being able to do anything you want is not always a recipe for success.
Claro, están comentando un poco de qué pasa de que en el caso de que se produzca un efecto especial con muchas luces dentro y cómo lidiarían con eso en cuanto al rendimiento. Y dicen que, bueno, que todos los equipos tratan de aunar o de buscar salidas para tener un buen rendimiento de FPS, pero que a veces pues tienen que recortar efectos de luces o de alguna manera recortarlos cuando está sucediendo ese evento y esperando que siga luciendo bien a pesar de hacer esos recortes, tratando de arreglárselas como pueden, ¿no?
Would he have a bone to pick with you guys?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm on good speaking terms with Mike. At least as far as I know, he may feel differently. But no, we work like on Origin as well. For example, we work quite closely with the VFX team on some of the volumetric particles that they were adding onto the industrial platform. There was I think there was some improvements to the way that particles are lit, and how they receive light and cast shadows that was added a little while ago. And so there was a bunch of VFX added to the industrial platform, and so we had to work kind of together to make sure that their VFX looks really good, and also that we kind of show off, how nicely like the shadows cast through, and how that we couldn't really do that before.
So where are we at, Zach? What's been going on?
We've got our kind of like our bulbs in here, our nice, sexy bulbs, and I've done a little bit of work. Yeah, I don't know. Very pink and purple. We've got, of course, if this is some sort of love den, then the bed is going to be quite important.
It's a little small.
It would be tricky, wouldn't it? It would be a bit tricky.
If you could quickly model out like a heart-shaped bed with like a nice leopard print cover, I think that would go a long way.
Absolutely. Just a second.
On like a rotating platform.
These teddy bears, they're not in. I saw one in Lorville as well. Are they in some of the older hubs, but not in the new ones?
It's a good question. That would come down to whoever dressed it. The teddy bear is it's a much beloved asset by the environment team.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Well, the props team at least.
The props team, sorry, yes.
Well, the props team is on the environment team. But
There's
I'm
a lot
pretty
of
sure
crossover.
I'm pretty sure it's the props team that's been dropping those in there. That's all.
So we could probably, I mean, I don't know how far you want to take this. We could move on to the stage of, there would be a lot further that we would take this, and a lot of the kind of detail lightings in the shelves and cupboards I haven't done, but that stuff does take quite a lot of time. So we could keep going, or we could jump into the kind of transition phases with these lights.
Let's go into the transitions. Let's see that. I've redone mine, and mine took way less time than yours did. So, I mean, I
I
don't
bet yours
want
is
to.
ray traced as
I don't
well.
want to. Yeah, mine's got ray tracing, and I don't have a shadow
Limited
budget,
rays.
so I mean, I don't want to tell you your job here, Zach, but I mean, it didn't take me much time to do this at all.
Damn.
Shots fired.
Yeah, I'm hurt. Okay, so the transitions is where it gets a tiny bit more complicated. The way that these light groups appear when you first kind of drop them in, the things that I mentioned at the beginning that kind of handle the transitions for the lights, is that they just look like this. And then you have to add within them these different kind of transitions. And the way that you distinguish between them is with these styles. And we have some kind of like setup levels that show all of these. There are some that flicker, and there are some that fade, and there are some that take longer, and some that happen much quicker. And we'll kind of jump back and forth between that setup.
Claro, está diciendo de que, bueno, lo que nos está enseñando es que ahora, que es una parte un poco más complicada, que son las transiciones de las luces. Desde parpadeos hasta que se vayan apagando poco a poco, y todo eso pues tienen que configurarlo con esos diferentes estilos que tienen ahí, y como que de alguna manera quiere decir que lleva un poco más de trabajo el configurarlas, ¿no?
When it works, that's how it happens.
Yeah, when it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a like it's a lot to wrap your mind around when you're working on it, but it's actually quite a powerful tool, which gives us a lot of freedom to kind of create these transitions in various different styles, or you know, you can get quite creative with them.
So within each of the individual lights has this section here for each state that says preset tag. You define the tag that you want for any given transition. So like seek reverse, sequence reverse, flicker 1, flicker 2, and then you punch that into the light, and you also punch in that ID for the offset you want, and you do that for every light.
Claro, está diciendo que configuras lo que sería, pues si quieres parpadeos, si quieres algún efecto en particular en la luz, que lo configuran y luego como que se lo pegas, ¿no? Se lo pegas a la luz, y eso lo tienen que hacer con cada una de las luces, tienen que pegarle los diferentes estados de los tres que hemos visto, ¿no? Del de emergencia, el normal y el auxiliar.
Can do that right now.
Yeah, it's a lot of iteration time, you know, figuring out.
Entonces le van poniendo etiquetas,
¿no?
Y mediante esas etiquetas pues van agrupando y definiendo el comportamiento de las diferentes luces de la estancia.
It's like a compact fluorescent which like slowly flickers before the power kind of comes on. Something incandescent where it has to burn for a little while before it reaches its full brightness. That kind of stuff. Yeah, it's
efectivamente, pues tienen que tener, si quieren una luz que sea del tipo, pues que hasta que tenga energía suficiente, pues que parpadee un poco, o sea, cuando viene la energía, pues que parpadee un poco, otras que sean incandescentes y que su brillo óptimo lo consigan, cosa que tarden un poquito en alcanzarlo, ¿no? Eso sería el fade.
I'm just cheating there and grabbing the values that I'd already used, so I don't choke in the moment and completely mess it up.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a cooking show. Here's one I prepared earlier.
Yeah.
Kind of workflow.
Yeah, we always have to make this disclaimer, make this reminder that there is almost nothing in game development that can be finished in an hour. Every time we
están
do one of
recordando
these
que bueno, que
demonstrations,
esto que estamos viendo aquí, que no hay nada en el desarrollo del juego que pueda ser terminado en una hora. Faltan unos menos de 20 minutos para que acaben esto. Bueno, 20 minutos, faltan 20 minutos para que acabe este show, y claro, que en una hora no son capaces de realmente demostrar, o sea, son capaces de dar una probadita del trabajo que están haciendo, pero que realmente les lleva bastante más tiempo el rematar esto, ¿no?
Because nobody else does these shows. You'll never see EA, hanging out with lighting artists or props artists and showing how they make a box.
Dice Discolando que que le gusta mucho estos shows porque nunca vas a ver a compañías como Electronic Arts haciendo este tipo de shows, mostrando el trabajo de los artistas o de la gente que trabaja de esta manera, ¿no?
Would any other game studio do this? And if the answer is no, I'm instantly interested. It's like absolutely consider this if nobody else will do it. Because I don't want to get off on a rant here, but it's one of the things that makes my job worth doing is highlighting as many aspects of game development as possible.
Claro, dice que una de las cosas que dice que ama de su trabajo Discolando es poder resaltar, poder mostrar todos los aspectos del desarrollo de videojuegos, ¿no? No solo lo típico que se ve en otras compañías y tal.
It's like, that is a Hideo Kojima game, and his name is on everything, and I'm sure he did a lot. But there were also 100 other people who spent years making that game, and I like to give everybody at least their
En Horizon está también la de emergencia, o sea, la auxiliar. Hostia, la de emergencia no está, es verdad. No la vemos la de emergencia, la AMPEC. Es verdad que no están las luces de emergencia, tío. El estado de emergencia es... A ver, los luces de las naves tienen 3 estados ahora mismo, en general, para todas las naves y para todo. Sabéis que Star City se unifica. El día de mañana, igual si hay un incendio, se pondrán luces de emergencia con el habitáculo. Un bombardeo, un ataque bandul, lo que sea, cualquier historia, ¿no? Pero bueno, que, o sea, de alguna manera, pues seguramente tengan configuradas las luces de emergencia también en los diferentes habitáculos, aunque no se haya encontrado todavía el momento adecuado para que se muestren, porque no ha habido ninguna catástrofe. O sea, tendría que haber algún tipo de problema en un habitáculo para que eso se viera, ¿no?
Devs, we're the unsung ones.
Y son zonas de
Not the
misticismo.
glossy, not the glossy print.
Yeah.
That's devastating.
Not at 23. Maybe when you get older. But
I mean, like that's one of the, for me, that's one of the nice things about this kind of open game development that we're doing is being able to show
gracias por la
the
suscripción.
process
Hola ahí.
live and showing stuff at how we work and how we do it. I think is, I mean, for me, it's quite interesting. Obviously, as a game developer, I'm interested in game development, so I think it's quite fun to show the community this stuff and. Hopefully also interesting to people.
Claro, tío, yo de tanto en tanto le prendo fuego a la casa a Lampec.
People have
para darle vidilla.
meaned me a little bit for ending every ISC with what did we learn this week, but it's
Sí, algo tendría que haber. Algo tendría que haber.
For a couple of reasons. One of the reasons I
Ya lo
is
habrá en el
because
futuro, seguro.
somebody who meant a lot for me and got me my start in this industry used to say that. So it's my tribute to them. But second is that I want to always remind people that the purpose of this stuff is education.
No sería malo que cuando hubiera un lockdown hubiera luces de emergencia.
Sometimes
o sea, cuando hubiera el bloqueo de los Ninetales, el Ninetales lockdown, que de repente pues se vieran ahí habitáculos ahí en plantal o... Por eso te digo, una invasión bandul o algo de eso que triggeara, maldito inglés, que activase las cosas, ¿no? Y cosas como esas y tal para verlo. O bueno, pues igual que si hay un ataque a la estación que se ve algún tipo de cosa. Lo que pasa es que ahora mismo pues no hay... Todo se andará.
Drama.
Oh, right.
I taught at a performing arts high school, actually. You ever seen that High School Musical show? I taught at the high school that was the basis of that show.
Oh, really?
So it was a performing arts high school where kids actually did break out into song and dance in the hallways.
Is there a character based on you?
No. High School Musical had already been out, but I don't know if it had already been out. I don't know. I've never seen High School Musical. I just know it's based on that school.
Okay.
I will admit, I really like the pink and gold that you started out with, though, and so did the chat. Like when we first started the screen share, like chat was like, "We need this. Put this in the game." Oh, this one's more gold than pink right now, but
what you had at the beginning,
pink lights are off.
Yeah, what you had at the beginning that was that nice mix of pink and gold, looked really cool.
I butchered it so I could show the transitions, because all of the interesting lights I already had on in the default. So we can bring them back, but then we don't get our transitions. So
I like that transition, how they turn on, in the direction coming towards the camera. I think that feels really cool.
White Sky Mage. I'm sorry, go ahead. Continue.
No, you go.
I was going off topic. White Sky Mage says, like, I'm so bad at improv in school, but now I'm role-playing in D&D. And they asked if we play D&D. Do you guys play D&D?
I have unfortunately never played D&D. I hear great things.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard from a lot of people that it's a lot of fun, but I've never had the opportunity.
The answer is yes, I play D&D. In fact, I host a D&D live stream on my personal Twitch channel every 2 weeks. There's a game tonight, actually. I'm not here to promote it, so I won't tell you where the channel is or what time. But yes.
I've also never played it in the club of sandwich haters and sacrilegious D&D not players.
Coffee hating and tea hating.
Don't bring all that up.
Wait, you hate tea as well?
No.
Oh, I hate tea.
Oh, but you're American. I mean, Zach's British. He's genetically predisposed to liking tea.
Yeah, I'll be torn to shreds if that gets out, but I don't like tea.
But you don't like tea, you just don't want it to get out.
A ver, están hablando de cosas triviales, por eso no digo nada, ¿no? Pero están hablando de cosas off topic totalmente, de te gusta el té, no te gusta el té, dice, bueno, tú eres británico, te gusta el té, eso no voy a estar traduciendo esas cosas, joder, porque nos morimos aquí de asco. Y ya está, o sea, no tiene nada lo que están diciendo. Y bueno, que Discolanda juega al Dungeons and Dragons. Fin de la historia.
Tea is just hot garbage water. It's like here's hot water and a little bag of dirt.
But coffee's just as bad.
Bueno, al final, este tipo de shows así que son más relajados y tal, es para verlos con calma, para planteárselos como lo que son, ¿no? Que nos estamos dando un proceso. No todos los procesos son iguales de cargados de información, o no siempre vamos a tener novedades espectaculares sobre ciertas cosas, ¿no? Pero ahora están hablando de cantidad de cosas que no tienen nada que ver con el juego, de tonterías en general. O sea, tonterías no de a malas, sino en plan de cosas, pues bueno, para hacer tiempo, ¿no? Hablando del té y de que el té es una bolsa es agua hervida con una bolsa de polvo, ¿no? O sea, imaginaros.
Like without going too far into it, but like just swap around like the primaries.
Rollo Cyberpunk, que el vecino le venía la
We can do
polvo,
that.
hostia.
We can do that, or...
Ah, que sea por NPC, o sea, que un NPC venga ahí o un bounty hunter. Pero eso lo vamos a ver, Lampec, porque se supone que los bounty hunter, a partir de cierta reputación, han hablado de que van a poder utilizar armas en las ciudades, armas aturdidoras. Así que...
If you were wondering what that sound was, that was me like having that one of those little angel and devil arguments, on one on each shoulder. It's like, how I really just want to crash the engine. It's like, I'm in a very subversive mood today.
It's been a little crash happy with me the last couple of days, so we're doing well that it hasn't crashed.
El panel
Yeah,
como el
sí,
quinto
sí.
elemento, no me acuerdo del
Behaving
panel.
very well.
O sea, me acuerdo de que el quinto elemento molaba de cómo salía la ducha,
So we
de
don't
la
wanna
cama y
anchor
todo
it
eso,
too
se
much.
escondía todo, estaba todo guapo, tío.
All right, so we got 15 minutes. We'll ask the chat. Chat, if we were to create another mood, what other mood? Let us look at your sexy time. Put your sexy time on there. Let us see your
Oh,
sexy
crap.
time. Did you just mess up the sexy time?
Yeah, we're going back. Here we
Oh.
go.
Power of undo. Yeah.
There we
Yeah, that's a way to crash
go.
it.
So we've got our sexy time here. What other mood should we get? Can we do a red alert?
Yeah, we can do that.
Let's do red alert in the hab. What is an emergency?
A ver, esta
lighting
emergencia lo van a
state
enseñar, ¿eh?
for a hab look like?
Yeah.
Everything's
You go, like,
red.
Submarine red.
Absolutely.
Red on red on red.
Disco mood. You just saw disco mood. Look, it's out there. What is going on with my hair today? This is. I took a shower this morning and then didn't do anything with it. That's what that is.
Red. Wow. Yes. There's a
Starting to
new.
look a little more S&M club rather than sensual sexy times.
It reminds me of the prison habs. Oh, I'm in the wrong level. But the prison habs have kind of a nice alternate light state that leans on red.
Emergency sexy time.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, there we go.
No van a hacer nada,
yeah.
no van a hacer nada extraordinario, me parece a mí.
There you go.
kind of like the red and the blue there.
Yeah, red and blue is very it's very Star Wars 789 kind of vibes.
Mm.
I always go back to Superman.
Superman 2.
The Superman 2 is all right. I prefer Superman though. Superman 2 did have Kneel Before Zod though. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Fijaros qué rápido configuro
Planet
las movidas.
Houston.
Bueno, qué rápido, porque tiene que hacerlo con cada luz, cada historia, pero vamos, que...
Houston, I'd be like, Planet
Y al final así salen las cosas, así le sale el juego. Poco a poco, ¿no?
How many years
there you
before?
go.
Dios.
Whoa, what was that? What did you just do there?
That was me accidentally, instead of clicking this slider perfectly to input a value, clicking and dragging and then setting the light value at 27,000.
Yeah. Several
professional.
suns worth of intensity.
So you're saying that just adding more light is not the answer to these situations?
Not always. Not always.
Just
sometimes.
more light.
Sometimes you have to go too far before you realize how good you had it before.
Oh yeah. No, it's actually a very common refrain in many aspects of game development. It's you bring it to the point of excess and then you bring it back to the point.
And then you start dialing it back.
You start dialing it back down, because if you just keep.
Está comentando lo típico, ¿no? Que también pasa en otros ámbitos del juego, de que a la hora de configurar luces, que a veces pones luces en exceso, pero poner luces en exceso tampoco es la solución siempre. Y que no te das cuenta hasta que has llegado demasiado lejos para saber que antes estabas mejor, ¿no? Que a veces los extremos sirven para poder darte cuenta de las cosas o tener una perspectiva más clara de lo que estás haciendo, ¿no?
Get more fog in there.
I'm messaging Ian right now.
Yep, get him in here.
Hey, Ian, you hear the shit Zach
Oh, God.
said on
That's your one,
today's
Jared.
show?
Yeah.
Bueno, diábolos. La vacuna bien. De momento...
As promised,
nada.
everything
De momento, pues no tengo nada. O sea, ya estoy bien. No tengo un pequeño, minúscula molestia del pinchazo. De que está ahí, pero bueno, ya veis cómo estoy con el brazo y así estaba el primer día. Lo único que no se me ven las manos, que es el efecto de la vacuna y tal. Si las subo mucho desaparece. Pero no, bien. O sea, el pinchazo y tal, pues es eso. Al final, como penetran un poquito en la piel y tal, pues puedes sentir alguna molestia, pero si has hecho algún tipo, o sea, si has practicado algún tipo de deporte, te va a parecer algo... No le vas a dar mucha importancia. Y lo que sí que me pegué una buena siesta ayer y ya. O sea, me pegué una buena siesta, estaba un poquito cansado, que fue el día después, digamos. Y ahora pues ya pero quitando eso nada. Pidorreteros del universo. Ojo, cuidado. ¿Qué tal, Raike? Nada, pero que es un trámite, chavales, que no... Ahora pondrán la segunda y tal. Lo único que toca un poco las pelotas es si tienes que hacer algo de cola y tal, porque... Te mandan a estar allí 15 minutos esperando y yo la verdad es que miré una mierda en el móvil y tal y dije, ¡ofu! Y me piré para casa, tío. Ven, hombre. Me piré para casa. O sea, te hacen preguntas en plan de... ¿vas a matar al presidente? ¿Has tenido alergias? Tal, lo típico. ¿Has pasado el COVID? Y ya... Yo tengo... De todas maneras, aunque nos pongan la segunda, que sepáis que no... O sea, no... Me refiero, no os pongáis el calzoncillo por fuera y creéis que soy Superman después, porque no, o sea... Tienes un 65% o sea, un 65% menos de posibilidades de contraer la mierda. Pero eso no significa
Yeah, so there
que,
should
que
be,
ya,
I think,
¿sabes?
down
Que
in
puedes
the
salir en
options, there's
pelotas a
like
bañarte en la fuente de la plaza. O sea,
angular
no.
speed setting.
Entonces, tener eso en
It's
cuenta,
down
¿sabes?
under the general
Buena, Chiglin.
options, or under the animation settings.
No sé, tío, yo...
It's trying to read like a list of values under
Yo creo que
pressure.
dependerá
Angular
de
speed.
las personas y tal.
Yeah, something like 500 to 1,000. is usually pretty good.
Go ahead, turn it back on.
And then you got to find the right rotational axis.
How do you? What, you just have to spin it around
I
until
think
you
you just
get
have
the
to
right.
spin it. Yeah. So I think you want to spin it on Y, like 90 degrees, to get it to go horizontally.
So
There you
much
go, there it is.
confusion. Oh, was
There you
that
go.
it? I went straight
That's it.
past it. There we go. Boop. Oh yes,
There you go.
it's panic-inducing as it
Bueno,
should
pero
be.
eso en vez de emergencia parece
make
que es
it red.
un lugar
Surely
alterno,
that's too
macho.
much.
O sea, eso no.
Much brighter.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh Jesus.
Dios.
Maybe too much red.
Demasiado rojo, si están diciendo. Ñe. Bueno,
That's
pero
not
lo
what you
último
wanna
siempre
wake up to,
hay,
is it?
Ralket, tío. Hay que estar
No.
muy mal para que no...
I love how the white is though is washing out the red as it passes over.
Yeah.
It's always my absolute favorite thing in all of game dev is when something works exactly like you would expect it to in real life. It's like when you do that, it's like, hey, that's just like it should be.
It's just how I expect it to be.
Yeah, it's just how you expect
Depende
it to
de...
be. Which is
depende
such a
del
weird
país.
thing because it's like I think
Depende del país, Lambek. Lo que pasa es que nosotros, al vivir en España, relacionamos ciertas luces de emergencia con ciertas cosas, pero depende del país, ¿eh?
it shouldn't
Yeah,
seem
exactly.
impressive. It should just seem
And then
like
it's
that's how
a
it should
beautiful
be.
moment when it works. Yeah. There you go.
Sí, a veces, a ver, que igual acabo de hacer una tontería, pero sí que, por ejemplo, en México las
It's
luces
not
de
as good when
emergencia
it
eran
doesn't cast
diferentes.
those nice long.
O sea,
Yeah,
ciertas
you gotta
cosas,
get
o,
the nice
o era un
shadows
mix, o sea,
before-
igual es
Yeah.
lo que esté más a mano y sea más barato. Tú te das cuenta de que se está cociendo algo porque es algo normal, tío.
That's a lot of the general pipeline.
Yo, por ejemplo, me
that we do as
acuerdo,
well,
tío,
like,
de
we
que
just stick a big
las
bright
putas
key
luces
light
de la
in the scene and find
policía
what looks
mexicana,
good
tío,
from what
madre
angle,
mía.
where you get the nicest
No te
shadows.
dejaba, o sea, no veías, literal.
They
O sea, era
kinda
un
build it
puto
up from
foco
there.
en toda la cara, ¿sabes? Y no veías una puta mierda.
And we always every
Igual
time
también es, a
then
ver,
add a fixture that
sí,
that
va de
light should be
iluminación.
emitted from.
Yeah.
Igual puede ser
Exactly.
por la altura,
And then we
porque
tell
a mí
the
1,90, igual las luces estaban
Now
pensadas, ¿sabes? Si
make
me
it
daban
actually
con
fit
el
into
cogote
the
ahí,
environment.
ve
That's
las
one of those-
estrellas.
That's
Igual
where
si,
the
si me
light's
agachaba
gonna
un poco,
cart
igual no
before
me
the
molestaba
horse
tanto, no lo
things.
sé.
Yeah,
You guys come in, you try to work with what's there, and then you get
Yeah.
to a point where it's like, I really want a light right here. It's like, this looks
Yeah.
so good if I could have a light right here.
Buenas.
And you have to go back to the environment.
Jack Carburo.
Oh, I didn't know you could
Yeah,
do it.
pretty please. Yeah,
This
there you go.
does feel very Star Wars as well.
Try making it a gold.
Aunque intenta hacer gold la luz. Dice. Ah, mira.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah.
Now it's Iron Man's workshop.
I give it like a flash. Give it like a style of 2 is like the crazy flash, I think.
Oh yes.
Dios.
Now what happens if you push the button?
Bueno,
Is
en
it-
mi
is it-
defensa
is it gonna
quiero
like
decir
gracefully go
que...
back to the deep?
En mi defensa quiero decir que ya he tenido bastante luces, estoy deseando que acabe, quedan 4 minutos. No ha sido tan horrible como otras veces. Porque a veces estos shows a mí personalmente se me hacen un poco pesados, ¿no? Porque como que ya hemos visto, vale, ya hemos visto que configuras, ya hemos visto que haces esto así, y luego como que extienden un poco, porque es lógico, porque lleva tiempo hacerlo, las cosas. Pero es que quiero ir al juego, quiero jugar, que hay nuevo parche PTU, joder. Quiero ir a jugar, coño.
Well, show it to Ian and be like, "This Zach made this today." And after the message,
Tengo muchas cosas que probar hoy.
He'll have a really great opinion about Zach.
Como ayer y como antes de ayer. O sea,
Hay que
tengo que
need to
probar,
just
quiero probar
como-
cosas, quiero pulir mi combate. Me siento
You can
inútil
try and, like, hide a
combatiendo.
button somewhere in the hub. something
Me
secret
siento un
where if you
puto
push
inútil
against it,
combatiendo.
you get-
Quiero darle caña,
Absolutely.
quiero
We
ver
get-
cosas,
Is there a
quiero
limit to the
avanzar.
number of light states?
Yeah, unfortunately, the light groups only handle technically 4 states, so like off, default, auxiliary, and emergency, because the feature was initially designed for ships specifically. So even though like the nomenclature of auxiliary and
No sé
emergency
si
doesn't
meter a
always
Koba
match up to
también.
what we're doing with
Es
the light
posible
group,
que venga Koba hoy.
kind of bound by those 4 states.
Tengo ganas de combatir contra él también.
Well,
Y
that's
de
it,
probar
gentlemen.
cositas.
We did it.
Yeah, right on time. Nice.
Yeah, we did it. Thank you so much for taking your time and hanging out with us. Zach, this is your first any kind of video for us.
Venga.
It is.
How'd it
It's been
feel?
a pleasure. Very
Okay.
good, thank you.
Still want to work here?
Well, if I'm allowed to after this, after you've called me out to Ian on several things.
Oh wait, Ian's responded. Are you kidding? Sort of. All right. Thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. This has been Star Citizen Live. We are still on our ISC hiatus, but we'll be back here with another episode of Star Citizen Live next week for the lighting team. It's Chris, and that's Zach, and I'm Hare. I'm realizing I don't look at myself very often. I'm like, I got to do something about this soon. I'll talk to you later, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Da 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 da.
Madre mía. Bueno, pues acabó. Pues eso, vamos al fucking juego, joder.